Hello everyone. In today's video I am going to take a look at one of the nicest and more important games of the third round in the Budapest Chess Olympiad. So this was played in the match Sweden against Romania, which had 3 draws and 1 decisive game. And I will show the decisive game between Blomqvist and Shevchenko. So the game started with e4, c5, knight c3, implying that okay, white may play the close Sicilian, but after knight c6, knight f3, d6, d4, the players transpose back to the classical Sicilian. Bishop g5, e6, queen d2, a6. So this is the rouser variation of the Sicilian. At castle long, this is the most principled approach. Black plays bishop d7, and yeah, here is the first interesting moment when white went with knight takes c6, which is actually not popular at all. I mean, I'm not too familiar with this opening, but it's only played in 1% of the games according to the Lichess database. So main line is f4, that is quite well known. And other moves include f3 and king b1, for example, which is very standard move. I mean, knight c6 is also, it can also happen, just normally it happens later. So bishop takes c6 and now f3. So obviously these type of things, like if black would play b5, that could be also some direct transposition to immediate f3 lines instead of knight takes c6, but the same can be said about bishop e7, so nothing so special. King b1, it's a very useful move, you know, it potentially it goes out from some diagonal, some file, and also in case queen a5 is coming at some moment, a2 pawn is covered by the king, so in general it's very useful move in this long castle Sicilians. So black played queen c7, completely normal. h4, also completely normal. And yeah, here, you know, seeing the game, how it went, it's maybe already an interesting question whether black should play simply long castle and put the king here. So he will definitely not face some attack on the king side in this case. In any case, this is a different variation. What black did is h6, which is of course fine as well. So white doesn't want to trade the bishops. I mean, it's not a trade, so like it would be giving up the pair of bishops, and you know the typical rouser structure is gf6, but obviously most of the time this type of possession, you know, when black is doubling white's pawns on the queen side, are also not too dangerous at all. So yeah, bishop f6 is not a serious move. Bishop e3 was played, and here b5 from black, which is definitely okay, I would say, but there are other moves which, again, like seeing this game, you know, and seeing how quickly it went wrong for black, maybe those are safer options. So one typical idea is after h6 to play h5 here. It is, you know, when white starts with this h4 and the pawn is not yet on g4 to push g5, then it's a standard idea to stop white's attack. And now it was good to chase back the bishop, because normally in such position the bishop retreats to g5. Like now it cannot be challenged. But now there is a strong move for black, d5. It's actually possible, with the point that after bishop f6, ed, there is long castle. So using the pin on the d file, and okay, black is also attacking the knights. They will take back the pawn on d5, and position is kind of okay for black. So this was one alternative, and even the immediate d5 is possible for black, I believe, and it looks much better than the game continuation. So here, if ed would happen, then after knight d5 and this trade, I mean, black is doing great. I mean, this bishop is nice. Probably they can even castle. Once again, in both sides, in my opinion. So black has no real problems here. The typical trick is to play e5 and transpose into a French type of structure after knight d7, f4, and with a complicated game. But I believe black has a completely decent position. Point of e5 is that after queen takes, there is bishop f4, and the queen is simply getting trapped. No matter if it goes to f5 or h5, the move order is the only question. So let's say it goes to h5, then we start with g4, and then queen g6, we play bishop to d3, and the queen is just trapped on g6. So black is losing a lot of material. So I believe both h5 and d5 could be improvement, but again, I am not an expert of this line by any means, and black was still playing instantly this b5 move. White played knight e2, so bringing the knight towards d4 and hit the bishop on c6. Black played knight d7, still very quickly. Knight d4. Of course, now white would like to take the bishop on c6 and get the bishop pair. And if the bishop is gone from black, then making d5 work obviously is a pretty much impossible task. So bishop b7. Black's clock is still over the original time, so it's 1.5 hours and 38 seconds. White also pretty much used no time, like 3 minutes. And here a very strong move came, which may be a novelty, although in these days you never know. At least in the Lichess database, it's a novelty and a very strong one. So of course, g4 would be a possible move here for white, but then black can play knight e5, for example, to put some pressure on f3, maybe go to c4, maybe prepare to play d5. And even immediate d5 is not an impossible move, because one of the points of bringing the knight to d7 is that e5 is not coming with the tempo, so, and also the knight covered that square, so the pawn just can be taken. White cannot keep the position closed. So after g4, I would say black's position would be okay, but what white did here is just extremely strong, and I believe quite unexpected, probably also for black. He played c4. Like, you would expect white to attack on the king side, and all of a sudden he makes a move which is like not even protected enough times and plays on the side where it is black who's supposed to play, but actually, opening the queen side is good for the reason that I showed many lines that black can even castle long. Since castling short is always a little bit risky with this pawn on h6, some g4, g5 can be maybe played, and also some sacrifice on h6 can be dangerous, as we will see. So yeah, and basically this c4 completely stops black's play on the queen side, so it's a really remarkable idea. Black doesn't have a big choice here, because if he would castle, then white can play rook c1, which is good, but to be honest, there is nothing wrong with c takes b, a takes b, and knight b5. So it is true that the a and b files are kind of open, but the queen is under attack, the pawn is under attack, and it's not clear what black can do against white's king, so it just looks perfectly fine. And in case of b4, then white achieved what he wanted. So first of all, the queen side is getting closed, which means that the king is very safe. And black's other counterplay with d5 is also, now under huge control. So white can just play g4, for example, knight e5, bishop e2, and king is in a very bad spot. Obviously, now long castle with the pawn on b4 is not really an option, and going short castle is as dangerous as always. So black decided to take on c4, and most logical move, and I believe this is very nice from white. This next move, bishop takes c4. That's the whole point of this c4 plan, and the position is already very unpleasant for black. So the point is that queen takes c4, rook c1. The queen has only one square to go to, that's a4, and then b3. Again, no squares backwards. Has to go to a3 and knight c2. It's a very nice way to trap black's queen, and the position is just completely winning for white. So it's already, I believe, trouble at this moment for black. I mean, he has to castle, like what else? And now rook c1. Not only protecting the bishop, but since there is this X-ray on the c file, there are threats like bishop takes on e6. So black decided to move away with queen d8. I mean, the computer doesn't really like this move, but I mean, I couldn't really find anything better. If black would play knight c5, which is the top choice of the engine, then I believe there is just one important thing to avoid with white. So bishop takes h6 looks very tempting. But the point is that after g takes, queen takes h6. White obviously have this type of checkmate ideas. But since the queen is still on c7 and not on d8, black can play d5 in this position with two ideas. So controlling the g3 square and then retreating the queen to g7. This position is quite complicated. On the other hand, after knight c5, black still doesn't have any type of counterplay against the king. I mean, not even the hint of it. So there is no need to sacrifice anything. White can just march with the pawns on the king side and the much better position. So I don't consider knight c5 a huge improvement. Black's position is just extremely risky at this point, and what is quite remarkable that white has 1 hour and 21 minutes at this point, and black has 1 hour and 17 minutes. So basically, the game just started, and the almost 2,700 player with black is already losing pretty much, because now white played fantastic move, bishop takes on h6. So this move is completely crushing black. Now it's exactly the opposite, like it was with knight c5. So if queen d8, if white would go g4, now black can play knight e5. So it's tempo here, attacking here, and if bishop e2, then black can play d5. And all of a sudden the counter plays in time, because like let's say f4, the knight jumps to c4, it has to be taken, and now the bishop is very strong on e4, and let's say if queen g2, there is f5, reinforcing the threat on e4. If the knight moves, then the queen can come to d3, so black is even better in this position. But bishop takes on h6 works wonderfully for white. Okay, it is just a pawn, so black has to take. Queen takes h6, and now there are many ideas. This is the most straightforward one, basically two moves, and it's checkmate, but there are also threats with knight takes e6, fe, and then bishop takes e6, also a huge threat. So black is in a great trouble, and basically lost the game on the spot with his next move, which was bishop to c6. there was only one move which would have kept black in the game and force white to show some precision, and that is queen to a5. Very strong move because it's again wants to bring the queen to e5 to control the square, so the rook is not giving checkmate, and also sometimes the queen can offer the trade on g7. So for example, if rook h3, then there is queen e5, and very importantly on knight e6, fe would be bad because of bishop e6, but black has bishop f6 move with counterplay on b2, and according to the ancient, the game should end with the repetition fe6. Now bishop takes e6, queen e6. Black is up 3 pieces, but the game is just a draw because not possible to block the check with the bishop since the queen is hanging. So rook h3 is not good, but there are two other moves which are good. So for example, knight takes e6 is good. I mean, fe is pretty much always losing to bishop e6 as well, but here queen e6 is much easier. King cannot go here because it's mate. And if the king comes to the 7th rank, then just check and taking the other piece with millions of pawns up, so it's just easy win. So fe is not good. Black has to play queen e5. Now there is knight takes f8, knight takes f8. And okay, it's, computer heavily favors white, but the game goes on. So like if at some moment the bishop can come to the long diagonal, the rook to the b file, white is definitely not giving mate anymore. So, game continues. It's not, white is better, but it's not so easy. So therefore, there is a really special move for white to achieve big advantage, but okay, it would be like 100 times more difficult than the game for white. It is bishop to d5. So first point of the move is that it closes the queen's way to e5 and to join the defense and control g3. And obviously the other point is still a tempo because it attacks the bishop on b7. So black has to take this bishop. I mean, taking with the pawn is the easy way for white because then just knight f5. So mate like this and mate like this. Bishop f6 is only move, and after rook h3, there is no defense against rook g3. So black can try this, but the game is over at this moment. So ed is obviously bad. Bishop takes d5 should be played. It's also kind of a tempo because black is attacking the a2 pawn. So he takes on d5. Now queen takes on d5 and rook h3. And yeah, now there are two ways for black. The main point of bishop d5 you can see after queen e5. So since we traded bishops, now the c6 square is available for the knight, and we can just play knight c6 since queen f6 is not available because they just take and mate. So knight c6, black has to give check. King a1, and again the double threat of rook g3 and knight takes e7 is deciding the game in white's favor. So after queen takes d5, rook h3, knight e5 is objectively better. Rook g3 check, knight g6, and then h5. So seemingly hg is coming with a decisive attack, but black has one more trick with rook a to b8. And here only one move is winning for white, which is again, I mean, it's not a super difficult move because the knight is eventually hanging on d4, but the point is that h takes g6 would be only a draw because rook takes b2, king b2, queen d4 leads to a perpetual check. So rook c3, rook b8, king c2, then check here, king d3, check here, and just a repetition and the draw. But if white just simply removes the knight. There is no threats on b2. It's gonna take back the material on g6 and possession is winning. But this would have been really much more challenging than the game. So in the game, queen h6, bishop f6 was played, and white found the cleanest way. Knight takes on e6. Of course, we shouldn't fall into this trap of bishop g7, rook g3, and queen f6. And apparently black is saving himself. So white just took on e6, queen b6. I mean, obviously the knight is pretty much never, hanging. Bishop takes e6, rook f7, queen g6. Here it's mate, so king h8, bishop f7. White has a lot of pawns and a huge attack. So it was not good. Black went queen b6, creating a counter threat on b2. And I believe this was really the last important move for white, which kind of clinched the game. So if rook c2, then black would have this tricky move of d5. It is still bad, but at least now the queen can maybe protect on the 6th rank. And yeah, black has some chances, but what white did is excellent. He played e5. So with this, he makes sure that this d5 will, not open the 6th rank, and also an alternative idea of playing bishop d3 with queen h7. Mate can be very useful. So black took, and now rook c2, just protecting the mate, and yeah, I mean, amongst other things, simply the rook is hanging. So black played rook a b8, white gave a check, king h8, queen h5 check, king g8. There are many ways to win. Computer even shows like concrete mating ways here, but what white did is really nice. So he just made sure that there is nothing, and he just took back the material and some more with knight takes on f8. So now f7 is hanging, rook must take back, and now queen g4. A check and attacking the knight. So after bishop g7, queen d7, white is up on exchange and 2 pawns, so the game is completely over. I will show you the rest of the game. It was bishop c8, bishop takes f7, king h8, queen c7, bishop g6, bishop e6. I mean, absolutely nothing for black. It's even white who is attacking. Bishop f6, rook c7, and after bishop d5, rook h7, black resigned the game, since after king to g8, rook h8, say bishop takes h8, and for example bishop h7 is a nice checkmate. So yeah, rook h7, and the game finished. Pretty impressive win. I mean, white was 200 points lower rated, but basically played an absolutely great game, and with this win, Sweden managed to upset Romania. So I hope you like this game, and please subscribe or follow, or leave a comment if you have sometimes some other idea for game of the day which would be good to cover. Let's say for round 4 you can leave a comment in the chat if you saw something which you would like to be covered. So for now, thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.